A slice of cheesecake arrives at your table looking almost too calm. The whipped cream is cold, still peaked, the surface is smooth, the cut is clean, and when your fork moves closer, you catch that soft vanilla smell before the first bite. It feels like it was finished minutes ago, right behind those kitchen doors. But here's something that might surprise you. The cheesecake, the product that gave the company its name, is the one thing that the kitchen does not make. It arrives through a system built to keep one fragile dessert tasting the same in every city. This is how it was actually made, and why the company decided its most famous product was too important to leave to any one kitchen. The recipe started with a woman named Evelyn Overton in Detroit in the 1940s. She found a cheesecake recipe in a local newspaper. I tried it, changed it. I tried it again. She was not running a test kitchen. She was solving a problem she could feel in every bite but could not quite name. The texture was never right until it was. Evelyn opened a small basement bakery. It worked. People came back. Then she stepped away to raise her children, and the recipe moved underground. She baked in the basement. Her husband Oscar wrapped each cake and delivered it by hand to local restaurants. No brand, no logo, no name on a building. The cheesecake sold itself because of what it tasted like. Years later, their son David took that recipe to Los Angeles. He opened a bakery, then a restaurant, and then the cheesecake stopped being a dessert. It became the identity, the name on the building, the promise every new location had to keep. But more restaurants meant more kitchens. More kitchens meant more cooks, more ovens, more hands, more judgment calls. And the recipe Evelyn had spent years perfecting could not survive that. Not because any single kitchen lacked skill, because the recipe could not tolerate variation. Here is the thing nobody tells you. Cheesecake is not cake. It is custard. That single word changes everything. Cake is forgiving. Overbake it by 2 minutes, mix it rougher, pull it early, and you still have cake. Custard does not adjust. It is a protein-fat-sugar system held together by structures so fragile that 3 things can destroy it before you know something went wrong. The first enemy is air. Cream cheese arrives cold and dense. It has to be softened enough to blend, but the mixing cannot be aggressive. Beat the batter too fast, and you fold air into the structure. Those bubbles are invisible, but inside the oven they expand. During cooling, they collapse. And they leave behind the one thing every home baker recognizes: a crack, right down the center. You did not cut it. The air did. The factory controls this by slowing everything down. The mixer does not make the batter lighter. It keeps the batter still. Every ingredient is measured, every stage timed. Speed is a virtue in a restaurant kitchen. For custard, speed is the enemy. The second enemy is heat. Cheesecake needs heat to set, but too much breaks the proteins apart. Push past the threshold and the edges dry. The texture turns grainy, the surface splits from the inside. The factory answer is a tunnel oven, a long baking chamber where pans ride a slow belt through controlled zones. Temperature, humidity, belt speed, and radiant heat are managed independently. The oven repeats the same thermal curve thousands of times a day. A restaurant cook opens the door, checks color, decides by feel. That works for a steak. Custard does not forgive feel. Multiply one cook's judgment across 200 kitchens and 6 days a week, and the variation compounds. The tunnel does not judge, it repeats. The third enemy is shock. A cheesecake leaving the oven looks finished, but the custard inside is still moving. The outside cools faster than the center. Rush that transition and the surface cracks not from baking, but from cooling. The factory solves this in stages. A slow ambient drawdown first, then a deeper controlled pull on the core temperature. Only after the custard has been guided through that gradient does the cake move toward freezing. Between cooling and freezing, human hands reappear, rosettes piped, toppings placed, chocolate shavings laid across the surface. The structure underneath is already locked. Freezing is not a shortcut. It stops the clock on a custard that was finally stable. 3 enemies, 1 system. Evelyn's recipe asked for the right cream cheese, the right sugar, the right eggs, the right heat, and the right patience. The factory does not add to that list. It makes sure nothing drifts. Think about what most restaurant chains do when they centralize. Frozen proteins from warehouses, pre-made sauces in bags, reheated on the line. Centralization usually means cutting corners. The Cheesecake Factory centralizes one product for the opposite reason. Not to save money, to save the recipe. More than 30 varieties. Over 35 million slices a year. 2 bakery facilities, with a third planned in Indiana. The scale is industrial. The reason is not. And the proof sits inside the same restaurant. 250 dishes from scratch every day. The company did not pull everything out. It pulled the one product that punishes inconsistency. The question is not whether this company trusts its kitchens. It clearly does. The question is whether any kitchen can give a custard what a factory gives it: the same thermal curve, the same cooling gradient every single time. Here is where the story flips. The question has been about the kitchen. What does it mean that the kitchen cannot make the cheesecake? That is the wrong frame. The kitchen is not being judged. The recipe is being honored. Most chains let the kitchen interpret. Tuesday's cheesecake drifts from Saturday's. Denver's version wanders from Atlanta's. For most desserts, that is fine. For Evelyn Overton's custard, the company decided it was not. The factory is not where the recipe goes to be cheapened. It is where the recipe goes to be repeated exactly. Every dish on the menu can survive a cook's personality. The cheesecake cannot. The company does not pull it from the kitchen because the kitchen is not good enough. It pulls the cheesecake because the recipe is too important for good enough. Next time someone says factory made, like it is an accusation, ask one question: what is the factory protecting? If it exists to replace real ingredients and remove skill from the line, that is one kind of factory. If it exists because a recipe is too fragile for variation and too important to let drift, that is something else. Most chains hide the factory. They call it a commissary, a distribution center, a production kitchen. The Cheesecake Factory put the word on the sign. Not as marketing, as a description. One caveat: consistency is a trade-off. A factory custard will never have the variation a home baker might love, the imperfect texture that makes each batch feel personal. The company chose repeatability over individuality, and that choice is in every slice. But it did not start in a boardroom. It started in a basement in Detroit, where a woman adjusted a recipe until it was right, and her family built a factory because no kitchen could keep it the same. 250 dishes prove the kitchen can cook. One missing cheesecake proves that cooking is not always enough. 250 dishes made from scratch every day. One cheesecake made somewhere else on purpose. That is the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there is something you would like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.